I'm thinking perhaps it's time for a quick tour of the giants in my garden. So this year everything seems to have taken off in this garden, which is for the most part only 2 years old. So in the front here we have Monarda didyma, which is bee balm, and the height of these plants is fairly normal, probably about 3 feet tall. But behind them, the volunteers, which are Oenothera biennis or evening primrose, are closing in on 5 feet, and we have one over here which is got to be 6 feet tall this year. These are a lovely plant in the garden, and in particular, the reason I like to leave them here and never rip them out except if they're in the way is because they are a preferred food for this little nasty, which is the Japanese beetle. And so leaving a clump of these growing draws the beetles to them, and they're much easier to locate and pick off into a pail of soapy water. Nope, camera's out of focus. Let's get that back. There we go. The other things in this garden, which aren't so obvious because they're dwarfed, is I have some Liatris cylindrica, or cylindrical, or cylindricea rather, or cylindrical blazing star, also known as Ontario blazing star, which is a lovely little plant, and normally in the past it's been more exposed and is a huge magnet for butterflies. We'll see if they find it this year now that it's being dwarfed by everything else. In the front here I have some Penstemon digitalis, or foxglove beard tongue, and as you can see it's already all gone to seed. Seed heads are nicely forming on here. Unfortunately the light is not great to capture it. Maybe we can see these ones a little better. There we go. In behind it I've got Golden Alexander, which is also going to seed as well. This particular plant last year had 7 black swallowtail caterpillars on it at one point, so I'm really hoping that it will do something similar this year. In behind I've got a variety of asters. I've got goldenrods, so I have in the front here a grass-leaved goldenrod, and then over there I've got my New England aster. These will all bloom later in the season, and if the light will allow us to see it, I've got wild bergamot. So another Monarda fistulosa. So I'll go around to another angle for that. But what I'm really happy with this year is my common milkweed, which is growing here. This is the best it's ever looked. I actually grow this in a pail so that it doesn't spread through the garden. It's just a very deep pot that I cut the bottom out of, and it has not managed to escape, and it's been here for a few years now, at least 3. I can't remember exactly when I planted it, but it is doing well. And then we start to get to some of the giants. So typically in this garden, in the back here in the middle, barely visible amongst everything, is the white flat-topped aster, which is normally one of the giants, or has been in the past, but it is now being dwarfed by false sunflower, Heliopsis helianthoides, which is well over my head. I haven't measured these, but some of these plants are approaching 7 feet tall. On this side, reaching for the light past everything else, I have Monarda didyma again, bee balm, that is getting up to close to 5 feet, in this case. It is up to and higher than my chin, and I'm 5'8". So then we can see behind it the false sunflower again. And then always the king in my garden up till now has been the cup plant, and this one is no exception at 8 foot tall. I just measured it this morning. But the real prize goes to this fellow right here, which is Rudbeckia laciniana, or green-headed coneflower, sometimes called cutleaf coneflower, or even wild golden glow. I just measured it this morning, and it is now 8 foot 7 inches tall and just starting to produce some flower buds. Over here I have Joe Pye weed. I'm not sure which one it is, but it is closing in. If I stood that upright, it's almost as tall as me, so it's over 5 foot 6 inches tall, and it seems to like it here in this corner, although in the heat of the day it tends to wilt, but it bounces right back. I have a lovely volunteer over here. Oops, didn't want to do that. Here we go. This volunteer is some more false sunflower that just kind of self-seeded in the fence, so I let it do its thing. In the front I have my fence of Virgin's Bower, Clematis virginiana, and no flowers yet this year. It was just new last year. It had 2 blossoms, so I'm really hopeful that this year it will do better. And down in here I've got a volunteer black-eyed Susan, Rudbeckia hirta, which I seem to have popping up around my yard this year, and that's okay. Over on this side I have some gray-headed coneflower coming up here and down here, and one that is probably going to have to get moved because it's way back in there under the cup plant and doesn't really see the light of day anymore. And then some sky blue aster, which is about waist high. But here's my wild bergamot, and it's about my height of my chin, so probably close to 5 feet tall. And this is a huge magnet for pollinators once it's fully in bloom. I can come down here and see a dozen different kinds of bees and wasps and butterflies at any given time of the day. Once these are all out, huge attractor. So I grow the bee balm for my pleasure. The splash of red is always amazing. And this morning I watched a hummingbird come and visit the tall ones on the far side of the garden, but this is really for the pollinators. It's a bit of a nuisance plant from my perspective because powdery mildew is always a problem with it, and I have to usually trim it back halfway through the year because it's just white with powdery mildew and starting to look nasty. But the flowers are always lovely and the pollinators love it. So there you go, what I now consider my giant garden because of a couple of plants in there that are quite magnificent this year. I hope you enjoyed that quick tour.